Okay, take two. I can only record 10-minute length videos with Screencastify without upgrading to a fee every month. And I just am not going to do that. So, anyway, if I have to do this in multiple parts, it's no big deal. We were talking about how would a relationship work with a 12-year age difference when the man is older by 12 years or the woman is older by 12 years. One of the relationships that the main character in the novel experiences and is part of, she actually there's a 12-year age difference. So how does society view it differently when the man is older or the woman is older? In one, there's kind of a badge of honor there, and in the other, not so much. She's viewed very differently. So think about that. Be aware of that, and really think about how does society treat that differently and why. How do we determine the qualities that we want in a significant other? And I think this is something that has really changed over time. It used to be, not that long ago, that people got to know each other because they interacted in physical space, classrooms, businesses, jobs, who knows where you met somebody, but you would get to know them and then maybe decide you do or don't like them and might be interested in dating them. Today, it looks very differently, especially as you have dating apps and things like that, where we are judging them on what they look like. Swipe left, swipe right, I know that that's how a lot of those apps work. No, I'm not on them. But um, how does that shape the qualities that we're looking for in a significant other? Most of us, if you ask, you want qualities, but what we are judging on, and we eliminate people from our pool by just surface value, by what do they look like. We don't actually get to know if we're compatible with them before we get to know if we like the way they look. So it's interesting how we determine the qualities we want in a partner or a significant other, because society has changed. And so think about that a little bit. And it will be interesting to compare that to how Janie goes through life and her relationships and how she looks for qualities. Also, are we able to be in command of our own happiness, or is it out of our control? To what extent is our happiness in our control? To what extent can we say, I'm going to be happy in spite of? Or is happiness kind of this ideal that we never really can attain? It's something that happens to us. I think you can make an argument either way, but I want you to really think about, what way do you believe on that? Okay, let's move on. So here you have a quick glance at the different characters in the novel. Janie over here is our main character, our protagonist. She is your age when the novel starts, somewhere around 16. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about, turn of the century, give or take a few years. And she was raised by her nanny. Nanny was a slave. She was raped by her slave master, and then she had a daughter who was also raped not long after slavery, but at some point after slavery. And that daughter is Janie. So there's Nanny, the nanny's daughter, whose name is Leafy, and then but Leafy's not really part of the story. You will just only know of her. And then Janie, who is Nanny's granddaughter, and she raised her. The three relationships that Janie experiences is Logan Killix, Joe Starks, and Tea Cake. Tea Cake is a nickname. It's Janie's nickname for him. He actually does have a name, which escapes me at the moment, but that's her nickname for him, and you'll find out when you get to that part of the book why she calls him that. You know of him right from the beginning of the book. You know he's dead when the book starts. So that's not a spoiler alert. But that's something that you will work towards. Up here you have some of the motifs that are in this novel. There's love, there's hate, there's murder, there's gossip, travel, politics, poetry, death. just life in general, life experience. There's sex in here. I mean, if you're really paying attention, Hurston's actually quite funny in some of the things that she writes and the way that the innuendos that are thrown in there. And if you're listening, I'll know because you'll laugh. So, you know, it's fun to watch or listen to. Okay, so the story takes place in Eatonville, Florida, which is a real place. If you look it up, I meant to get some pictures, but time being what it is, I didn't get to it. But you can look it up, Eatonville, Florida. It's right central Florida, and it's right near Orlando, which is where Disney World is. Eatonville still exists today. It's known, as you should have read in the unit intro that you read and annotated, Eatonville is the first all-Black community established. We're talking about post-Civil War here, and we're talking, somewhere around the turn of the century. So think about, that although legally free, that didn't mean widely accepted in society. And Black culture found ways to support themselves, create their own jobs by creating their own towns, right? Their own laws, their own ordinances, and the way a city would run completely based on Black culture. And it was a way of self-preservation and protection and camaraderie. And this Eatonville was the first one documented and recorded as its own city. And so this story takes place there. And she actually, I believe, is from Eatonville or something like that. But she has a connection to Eatonville. I think she's from there. I could be slightly wrong on that. But the novel starts and ends there. Their Eyes Were Watching God is what we call a frame narrative. What that means is it's one character starts the story, and then the rest is told in flashback, and then it comes back to the scene where the main character was telling the story. Think about Titanic. That's a frame narrative, where Rose is telling the story of how she got on Titanic and what she remembers, and then suddenly it goes into the flashback and it's the old time. It's 1912 on the Titanic, and you get to know the story of Rose and Jack. And then at the end, after Jack dies, sorry if you haven't seen it and you plan to, but he dies. And you get to the end and it's Rose again, finishing the story. That's a frame narrative. Another one, The Princess Bride. There are many movies and novels that use this framework, but that's what it basically is. Okay, so here are your prompts that you will have to choose from. And these are the ones that you're going to keep track of on that sheet, on this evidence collector, okay, where you're going to track evidence of each that pertains to each prompt as you go along. First one, to what degree can Hurston's piece be labeled a feminist text? And remember, again, feminism just means the advocacy of women's rights based on the equality of the sexes. It does not mean man-hating. It does not mean that women believe that they should be superior to men or have more power than men. Feminism, in its truest sense, just simply means equality of women, rather, and advocating for women's rights. That's all it means. So to what degree do you see that in this novel? What instances in Janie's life and story advocate for women's rights and equality? So in this question, what you're really doing is you're talking about purpose. So that's a little bit of rhetorical analysis, but also it's a bit theme. And a lot of times purpose will overlap with theme. We say purpose in a rhetorical analysis situation. We say theme in a literary analysis situation. So that's kind of what that's looking for. So in order to answer that question, you would need to really identify what is feminism, and in what ways, where in the novel do you see Hurston advocating for women's rights? The second one is, which of the three marriages is most beneficial for Janie? Beneficial is a tricky word here because it doesn't necessarily mean which one is she the happiest in. It could just mean which one did she grow most as a result of that from which relationship did she grow the most, and that growth was beneficial for her over happiness. It might mean to you that which one was the best for her because it brought her the most happiness. You have to decide what